That's mind-blowing. I mean, it feels so solid.
That's as consistent as it gets.
Oh my gosh, it's good, man. Hot.
I'm glad if they play a different driver, because I know this one's the best.
It's the best feeling driver I've ever hit.
Welcome to Talk Birdie to Me with former world number 16 Nick O'Hearn and Tour Pro Mark Allen. Live from Titleist and FootJoy headquarters. Titleist, they're the clear number one ball in golf. FootJoy are the number one shoe and glove in golf. Ping, they'll help you play your best. The Golf Clearance Outlet beat everyone's prices. And Better, the fastest and easiest betting app in Australia. Now, from Titleist and FootJoy headquarters, it's time for Talk Birdie to Me.
Well, g'day everybody. Welcome to the podcast. It's the Steve Williams podcast, and it's all about this book, Together We Roared. Steve Williams and Evan Priest have written this book. It's a ripper, and it is absolutely perfect for Father's Day, which is first Sunday of next month.
Certainly is.
Do you have much to do with Steve Williams?
A little bit. I saw him on the course quite a bit, but to be honest, off the course, not much. I think he was a fairly private person off the golf course, but anytime I saw him on the range or when I happened to play against or with Tiger, we'd always have a chat and always got on pretty well. I mean, the Kiwis, the Aussies, there was always good banter.
I always found him when the effects mic was on, when he was caddying for someone of note, he was brilliant to listen to. I've got that many questions about it. But before we get to Stevie, can we please, all of us, you too, Dan, welcome aboard BMW because they have come on as a major sponsor of Talk Birdie to Me. So a big welcome to Wolfgang and everybody at BMW. Thank you for your support. We really appreciate it. And look out for our BMW Touch of Class segment. And we better show people why we're doing the Touch of Class. It's such a beautiful bit of golf, audio, and also video.
Some of the best one-line. There's a guy called Lee Trevino, as we know. He's got some of the best one-liners. But when he describes this shot as Sevi, touch of class, baby. It's just so,
let's have a look.
So good.
Let's have a look.
He appears to be using something like a number 3 or 4 iron. He'd have to pick the club up very sharply in the back swing and drive the ball forward.
Touch of class, baby.
Touch of class.
Touch of class. Get up. Buena, Sevi.
Well, that is pure magic.
Oh, and speaking of touch of class, you're driving the X5 at the moment. Good on you.
I am. I tell you, it is a classy vehicle. Just took it up to Cathedral and back and never had a better ride up there and back.
Yeah, lovely.
So beautiful.
They always look beautiful. Yeah, they look gorgeous.
Speaking of such a class,
we've got Stevie Williams online. G'day, Steve. Welcome to Talk Birdie to Me.
Yeah, good to be on the show, boys. Thanks for having us.
Well, your book's a ripper. I'm 100 pages through. It is an absolute belter. Easy to read. The relationship between you and Tiger is quite amazing, and some little insights along the way. But I want to talk to you about caddying. You are the greatest caddy who's ever lived, as far as most people are concerned, most good judges.
He made my number one of my top 5 last week, Steve, so you'd be proud of that.
Steve, so tell me about this. Just reading your book, it seems like the personal relationship between you and the person you are caddying for is pretty high up on that list.
Yeah, look, I mean, when you say about, you name your top 3, 4, 5 caddies, it's very difficult to justify how you make that decision. And what you base that decision on. But one thing I can always say is that, every player that I've caddied for has been successful, and every player that I've caddied for has won. And, where did that come from? I think I was very fortunate in my very early days to be working for Greg Norman and saw what confidence he took with him to the golf course every day. And up until that point, he was probably the most confident person I'd ever been around. So I guess he had some influence for me in working for him. I needed to be as confident as he was, and had to make decisions quickly, confidently, And hence, I just went about, like a lot of people have always asked me, when how come you walk so quick? Like no one can walk quicker than me with a golf bag on their back.
That's true.
And that's a fact. But that came from, I always think you've got to get to the ball a little bit earlier than the player does. But even every second that you can get there, the closer you get to the ball, you're sort of saying to yourself, okay, it's about the 150 mark, and you get, a few more meters close to the ball, it's 145 for sure. You know exactly how far it is, and it gives you time to get there. Okay, where's the pin located? What shot it's going to be, and any information. So when the player comes there, 25, 30 seconds behind you, and what have we got, Steve? I've got an answer straight there, and I'm not thinking maybe if could be this. I've got an answer, and you'd be very definitive and be very confident. And all the players I've caddied for, I've always admired that. There's no. I'm never going to give maybe I'm not sure what it could be. I'm going to give you a definite answer, and it's going to have some confidence in it, and it's going to give the player some confidence.
Yeah, no, I've seen it firsthand, Mark, because it's funny. I was played through Tiger's era, and Steve was on the bag, obviously, and I would see Steve. Like I vividly remember, I think it was the British Open 2005, maybe at St Andrews. And I see this guy running the golf course, in the morning or earlier in the week or something like that, and he's just pounding out there. And you could see him running, getting all the measurements and everything. You are probably the hardest working caddy I've ever seen, that's for sure. And obviously also one of the most knowledgeable. But I mean, throughout your career of caddying for various players, you must have. And I think probably one of the most famous ones in recent times is when you said to Scotty in the playoff at Augusta, "No, it's 2 cups outside right, not 1 cup outside right." Are there any specific moments you can remember where you told a player it's going to be this and it just came off perfectly? Or did you have one where you go, oh, maybe that wasn't the right decision?
Well, I mean, look, when you go to caddy for someone, and particularly when I went to caddy for Tiger, I take the job on. I understand what his goals are, what his aspirations are, and getting the second major for any player, whether it's Tiger Woods or whoever it is, the second major is the most difficult one. So, he went 97, won the Masters, went the rest of 97, all of 98, and the first 3 majors of 99. I started with him in 99 and didn't do any good in the first 3 majors we did together. And we got Medina, and he had a chance there to win the PGA, and he was sort of going a little bit backwards on Sunday, and we got to the 16th hole there from about 5 feet. And he asked me to read it. He said, "I got it left edge." I said, "No, it's inside left." And he said, "You sure?" I said, "I'm sure, positive." And he knocked it in. And, that was the moment that if that putt hadn't have gone in, that was at the end of 99. At the start of 2000, he would have been still searching for that second one, and that pressure would have been mounting even more. That wasn't a moment. This is that part where he doesn't win that tournament. Does he go on in 2000 and go on the tear, like he did? But for me and Tiger, that was the moment that created that relationship that we had, and that's what started that incredible run.
So, Stevie, I mean, you're famous for this sort of stuff. The Adam Scott read, that Tiger read at Medina. The first time I saw you do it was when it must have been early in your days, and you were playing a shootout with David Duval. Tiger said an easy 6, and you said, "No, Tiger," and you came over with the bag. You took the 6-iron out of his hand and you stuck it back in the bag, and you said, "Look at the ripples on the water. It's into it. It's a hard 6." And I reckon Tiger made the hardest swing he's ever made in his life with that 6-iron, trying to prove you wrong, and only just went a little bit past. So you do have this amazing ability to be right. And whether the player likes it or not, you have this ability to be correct. Now, where the hell did that come from?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, as Nick alluded to, I would spend countless hours out on the golf course, outside of the time, the tournament hours, if you like, of that, And look, I live by the 5 Ps. Proper preparation prevents poor performance. And I always felt, if you could just know the golf course, every little thing, and every tournament I'd ever go to, I'd go into the pro shop and ask one of the assistant pros or the pro or somebody, what are some of the things about this golf course that I wouldn't learn by walking around here in 2 or 3 times that you can tell me that you've played it a lot of times? What is it that you can tell me? All those little things. And they tell you things about the wind, the green, the way the ball might fall in the air on some holes, and just all little different things. And I noted that, and I noted all different things down. But as far as the confidence about being, I think I just put so much energy into it, and I was never afraid to be wrong. So, you just put so much energy into it, and, if you just seldom make a mistake.
Mm. And I guess, with the different players you worked for, you started, what was it, Ian Baker Finch, and then you went to Greg Norman, Raymond Floyd, I think, after that, right? Yeah, is that correct?
Some strong characters.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it? And then Tiger and then Scotty. Very different across the board, I would imagine, personality-wise. How do you I guess, adapt your own style to theirs, or is it more just a coming together of two minds? How does that work?
Yeah, good point, Nick. There's no guarantee if you're a very successful player. There's no guarantee that because you're a good caddying for this guy, and you're going to go and step onto this guy's back, because you've got to be able to read that guy's mind. That's what I always understood. How I looked at it, you've got to put yourself in that player's shoes. How does that guy think? How does that guy play under pressure? What is his view on life and everything? You've got to take everything in about the player, and then you've got to base how you're going to caddy. So every player that you caddy for, you can't caddy with the same style. You've got to talk about different things. You've got to go, you've got a different tone of voice in that. But one thing you've got to be with every player you caddy for is be assertive. And I know for every guy that I've caddied for, that's one thing they always enjoyed about me. Is there was no decisions. It was assertive. It was confidence. It was given with confidence, and that gave players confidence. With numerous times you see me caddying for Tiger, and I'd stop him while he was swinging. That's in a feat in a player that can actually do that. I'd say, "Hey, Tiger, and he'd stop," and I'd say, "Hey, the wind's changed."
Where did this banana and peanut butter sandwich stuff come from? Because I thought it was only you and Tiger, but after reading your book, it's you and everybody, and you were making the sandwiches.
Yeah, every player I caddied for, this from day one, that's just something I did as a kid. So you get 2 peanut butter sandwiches. One's on the 7th tee, one's on the 13th tee. 1/3 into the round, 2/3 into the round. Peanut butter banana sandwich. It's a great thing to have on the golf course. It's got peanut butter, it's got banana, 2 things that are slow release sugar.
What did Raymond Floyd say when you? Or Greg? What did Greg say when you gave him a peanut butter and tomato banana sandwich on the 7th hole for the first time?
I don't want to repeat that on the air for the first time.
I reckon Raymond Floyd would be more used to caviar than he would a banana and peanut butter sandwich. What was it? Greg. Those other 2 characters, Greg and Raymond. Greg was. He was Tiger Woods before Tiger Woods was Tiger Woods, really. And then Raymond Floyd, you were caddying for Raymond when he was playing seniors golf. Tell us a little bit about caddying for those 2 blokes as well.
Yeah, look, obviously caddying for Greg was for me, I think he taught me about the game of golf. I learned he was an iconic player in Australia, and he was a thrill to caddy for. The amount of tournaments he won in Australia and the fanfare that he had in Australia was really, really good. But he actually taught me about the game of golf, about how you flight the shots and what's required. And I just learned so much off him. And toughest guy I've ever caddied for. If you asked anybody that's worked for Greg, obviously a caddy that's worked for him has worked for numerous players. And across the board, there's no guy harder to caddy for on the golf course. Different kettle of fish off the golf course. Then you go and caddy for Raymond Floyd, absolute gentleman, a very unorthodox player, but a guy that just has been successful through hard work and dedication, because he's very unorthodox and just got a great mind. He was fantastic to caddy for. A different temperament, obviously, to Greg, and different temperament to Tiger, more along the lines of Adam, a very chilled sort of guy, doesn't show too much emotion. Obviously, got a lot of emotion inside them, but doesn't show it. So, certainly had, a handful of players in all different sort of characters.
Mm. I was going to say, when you finished with Tiger, and that was well publicised, I'm sure it's all in the book and everything like that, but going from him to Adam Scott, who's a completely different character, you must have been thinking, this guy, and I always thought, how does this guy ever play bad? Because he swings it just phenomenally. But what was the difference, I guess, when you first went onto his bag that you saw between, say, Tiger and Adam in the majors, for example? Because really that's what it's all about.
100%, Nick. And look, to be honest with you, that's why I took the job, because I wanted to know myself how this guy didn't do better in the majors. And when I reflect back on all my years of caddying, there's a lot of things, you reflect that you're very proud of doing, and you had some success and so forth. But like to go and caddy for Adam, and the very first tournament I caddied for him was at the US Open at Congressional. And he said, Stevie, can you get there on Saturday? And I'm thinking, yeah, that's fine. He played Saturday, he played Sunday, he played Monday, he played Tuesday, he played Wednesday, and it came Thursday. He was absolutely wiped out and played rubbish.
Wow.
Right.
But that was just a 1 week thing. And then I caddied from another tournament, and then things went south with Tiger, so that there was an opportunity to caddy for him. So I said, right, I sat down with him and said, hey, this is, your whole way you went about playing in that US Open is not the way you go about playing in majors. So, 2011, 12, 13, Adam had the lowest aggregate score 3 straight years in the majors, which was a very impressive record.
Wow.
Sadly, he only won 1 major, and realistically, he should have won 3 majors in that time. He should have won at, the British Open at Lytham St Anne's. He should have won it at St Andrews, and he won the Masters. But he didn't get over the line in 2 that he possibly should have. But that was really enjoyable to caddy for someone that hadn't had limited success in the majors. And of course, the highlight of that was to be the first Australian. And look, it didn't matter if it was Australian, New Zealander, to have somebody from Australasia win the Masters, like having caddy for Greg. And that was the one thing he just desperately wanted to do, was put that green jacket on. And to caddy for the first Australian to put that green jacket on was something, I'll never forget that.
Okay. Now, we've got some questions from people who listen to this podcast, but I've got a question first, and I've been dying to ask this question. All right. So I want to know, you had front row seats to some of the best golf the world has ever seen, with Greg, Raymond Floyd, and Tiger. I want the best shot you ever saw Greg play, the most important thing you ever saw Raymond Floyd do, but I want your 3 best shots from Tiger Woods, if you've got it, for the best things you've ever seen them do.
Well, the best shot that Greg hit was at the Australian Open. I think it was 1988. It was on the 14th hole of the composite, the par 5 that goes back towards the road there. Had a driver off the deck there. It was howling, absolutely howling. It was a tournament where the tournament actually got stopped with the wind, made the greens too fast. Anyway, had a driver off the deck. The group in front was still on the green because there was no way he could reach. Knocked it on the green. At the particular time, it was just the most amazing shot. Raymond Floyd on the 14th hole at Augusta, the year that he almost won the tournament, finished second. On the 14th hole there, he came up short on the right-hand side of the green, and the pin was on the front right. Now, Nick, you know how steep that slope is there. Well, he bumped it into that bank. We like back foot sandwich into the bank, hard up the bank was a spin and went in a hole. And I had a friend of mine in New Zealand that was watching. He's probably 280, 300 pounds. There's a big pine tree on the left of that green, Nick. When the pin's left, those couple of limbs hang over on onto the green there. You could hit on when the pin's on the back left-hand side. Well, he jumped up and he hit that tree. And then, of course,
I think I remember watching that shot of Raymond's. It might have been the greatest one hopper. I talk about the one hopper where you bank it into the hill. It goes up, spins, and I remember watching that. It was incredible.
Yeah, the greatest one hopper ever. And of course, the legendary shot from Tiger. I mean, it's hard to say the one out of the bunker at Glen Abbey on the 2000 Canadian Open out of that bunker, or the shot at Hazeltine out of the fairway bunker on the 18th hole on the Friday. One of those 2 shots. Shots that could never be repeated.
Tiger Woods had an extremely difficult 3-iron bunker shot on the 18th hole.
I'm going to tell you what, this might be one of the best golf shots I've ever seen.
Oh, my word.
That is one of the best I've ever seen. Look at that smile.
Tiger then went on to drain the 8-foot birdie putt.
Spectacular. Tiger Woods is 2 back. His second round complete.
The chip in on 16 at Augusta was okay
the
too.
The chip
in
at 16. What about the noise? When that one went in, Stevie, the noise. Oh, I was there.
I was in the clubhouse. And
I was there.
The ground shook.
Tell us, what was the noise like from being inside the ropes where it's all focused on?
Well, I'm glad you asked me the noise, not about the worst high five
I've ever given in golf.
Because that was the worst high five I've ever seen by myself. Look, I mean, it was just incredible because the 30 seconds, or not the 30 seconds, but those few seconds when the ball leaves the tee and you think, is it left? Is that in the bunker? No, it's in the water. No, it's not in the water. Where's that? And we're walking up there and Tiger's yelling at me, where is it? I don't know where that ball is. I've never been over there. It's such a bad shot. And Finchie's up in the tower there behind the 15th green, and I'm getting Finchie's attention, and I said, is that all right? And he put his thumbs up. So I said, Tiger, it's dry. Gets up there, surveys the shot. He says, Stevie, there's a pitch mark, and he walked up, pointed out to that pitch mark. He said, do you think if I pitch mark that won't go too far up the hill where it won't get too much speed and it'll come too far back, racing past the hole? I said, that looks pretty good. He explained the shot. Unbelievably, when he was standing there, hit that shot, I wasn't watching him. I was watching that pitch mark just to see in my head how close that pitch mark. It landed exactly on that pitch mark. That was the most amazing thing. It wasn't that it went in. It actually landed on that pitch mark. And then, then the rest is history, followed by the worst high five you've ever seen.
Ball of Tiger Woods. Lanny, what about this?
Vern, this is extremely difficult. This is one of the toughest pitches on the entire place here. He's got to put this well. You can see him looking up the slope. He's almost got to put it up to where you saw Trevor Immelman's ball come from to get it close.
Well, I am reminded of Davis Love here 4 or 5 years ago when he pitched in.
Yeah, he's a little bit further up, I think, than Davis was.
Yes, he is.
Got the same basic kind of shot. He's going to have to get it close, he's going to have to put it up into the slope, though, somewhat. And, of course, it's made a lot tougher by having that second cut right behind the ball. It almost forces him, I think, to put it back and have to hit a low shot. He cannot put it up in the air with the second cut that close behind the ball. You can see him putting it back in his stance right here and picking the club up like he's going to hit right down on it.
And he's picked out a landing spot that is a good 25 feet above the hole.
There's a good chance he doesn't get this inside the Marco's ball.
Have you seen anything like that?
Hey, just before we get to the, I think you've got some of our listeners, the podcast members have asked some questions. The one thing I always couldn't understand with Tiger was that in all my life and probably Nick's life as well, and so many professionals, we were all trying to stay calm. But he would go crazy with the fist pumping. Like it was almost like his head would come off. He was so pumped up. How did he go to the next tee and get rid of that? Or did he even try to get rid of it?
The Tiger had so many personal goals going every day, and we always had a lot of bets going as well. Now, these were 1-hole goals, 2-hole goals, 9-hole goals, 15-hole, whatever it might be. There was always goals within the tournament, not just playing a 72-hole stroke play tournament. There were so many goals. And a lot of the times when he fist pumped him these were goals that he set himself to do, and he accomplished that goal. And one of them might have been taking some money off me. So sometimes, when things weren't quite going good, I'd say to Tiger, okay, look, Tiger, everything was always a $100 bet. So, okay, we've got 3 holes here before the turn. Let's see if we can hit 3 fairways and 3 greens. So every fairway you get 100. Every green you get 100. If you don't hit it, Just take his mind away from the tournament a little bit and try and reset. And he hates losing money. So, it would just take his mind off. And, of course, if he got to the 9th hole and hit 3 fairways and 3 greens, there's that little fist pump. And it wasn't because he was fist pumping, because he's just taken 600 off Steve.
I love it. That's so good.
Okay, now we've got some questions from Wolfpackers for you, Steve. We will go to the turn, come straight back and hit you with these after it. From Titleist and FootJoy headquarters, this is Talk Birdie Simi. Ping will help you play your best. The Golf Clearance Outlet beat everyone's prices. And Betr is the fastest and easiest betting app in Australia. Now, for Titleist, the #1 ball in golf, and FootJoy, the #1 shoe and glove in golf. Here's Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen.
Okay, we're speaking with Stevie Williams, and we're speaking because he's got this great book going. Together We Roared. It's a beauty. I'm 100 pages in, and I'm absolutely loving it. Stevie's over in Washington, where he lives. And now, Dan, we've got some Wolfpacker questions. So thanks very much to everybody who's sending their questions. How many have we got?
Oh, well, we got a ton. We got about 50 or 60 questions come through, which is fantastic. And we chose 3 to ask. And Nick, you will choose the one that you think is the best question.
Okay.
So that'll be good. Oh, drop the book there. Okay, first question here. This comes from Ant. How much influence did you have on Tiger with his club and shot selection? You've already touched on this, Steve, but yeah, that's a really good one from Ant here.
Yeah, look, I mean, I always caddied in a bit of a different manner to what most people did. And I alluded to earlier on the program about how I would walk forward and everything. So when the player got to the shot, I would say, okay, Tiger, it's 148 to the front, flags 15, 160. So he processed that information, and then he would say what he thought, and we'd come together. So, look, you always have, I think a very good caddy is never going to let a player stand there and hit a shot with a club that he believes is not right. So I think that's what makes a successful caddy, is that every caddy that's really got a good partnership with their player and a really good bond, one of those really good bonding things is that the caddy will not just be a yes man and stand there and let his player stand there knowing his player's got the wrong club. If you can find a way, have a way of getting them convinced that you know that you're right, that makes a very good caddy.
Hey, Stevie, just on that, we're both professional golfers here, and I was listening to Justin Rose after his win last week to talk about, for whatever reason, this week he was hitting the ball a little bit further than normal. And, depending on what side of the bed I came up on, my 7-iron could have gone 160 yards or 170 yards. I mean, you just have those sort of weeks. How long did it take you to understand how far Tiger was hitting it each week?
Yeah, look, you get a grasp on it very quickly. When you go to caddy for a player for the first time, you sort of note down every single shot that they hit on the course and practice rounds as well. Of course, when they get under pressure and there's a little bit of adrenaline going, it starts going further. And one of the things I became very, very good at with Tiger is adjusting the yardage. I would know sometimes he was getting the adrenaline going and starting to go further and further. So, it might be 130, but I'd tell him it's only 120, so he didn't hit it so hard.
Is that right?
To the point where at one round at Bay Hill, I didn't give him the right yardage for any 18 holes, and it was always difficult on the par threes because I didn't want him listening to what the other caddies were saying because I was giving him a different yardage. So
wow.
So I did that frequently, and the very first time that I did it, that was really major consequence was on the 17th hole when Tiger was playing in the PGA Championship at Valhalla up against Bob May, a really exciting duel. We got to that 17th hole there, and it was like 95 yards, which was just out of reach for a 60-degree wedge. But I knew it was a 60-degree wedge. I could feel it, I could see it, I could visualize it. So I just told him it was 89 yards, which was a perfect.
Wow.
And he stiffed it, made birdie. Like I had told him it was 95, he would have hit the gap wedge and wouldn't have hit it as close. So,
did you tell him after, ever? Did you ever tell him after that you were doing this stuff?
Well, I got to the point where I don't want to know anymore. I just told him so often. He just don't tell me.
Well, that's perfect, actually. What I want to know is, and Mark has told this story on the pod before, did you tell him you only had one ball in the bag on the 18th tee at Pebble Beach in the 2000 US Open?
Not till after, Nick. If that second tee ball had gone there, I wouldn't be sitting here today talking to you, buddy.
Wow. I'll tell you, if you want the whole story, read Together We Roared. It is right in there. It's in there nice and early. It's one of the great golf stories in the history of the game. Incredible. That story.
You talked earlier on about how Greg was a very tough guy to caddy for, and Peter has said, can you describe the key differences between working for Greg and working for Tiger?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, they're two very, very aggressive players, two very, very confident players, two guys that worked extremely hard, and two guys that had complete faith in what they did. The biggest difference was Greg could get very upset and very angry, as did Tiger, but Tiger could shake it off straight away. Greg, he might shake it off 1 hole later, 9 holes later, 1 day later, 1 week later, 1 month later. a very poor something, a very difficult happening or something that didn't go his way, and that it took him a while to shake it off. And that was his only downfall. Who knows? He's a fantastic player. He's an icon. He's won a lot of tournaments, but who knows how many majors if he could have won if he had a slightly different mental attitude, and if he had had the same mental capacity of, not an intelligent capacity, just a capacity to take bad breaks as well as Tiger could take them. I think he would have been, more than 2 major championships. So that was the main difference. They're both fantastic guys. One guy was hard to work for. Tiger was pretty easy on his caddies, and Greg was very hard on the caddies, but both great blokes, great golfers, and 2 guys that have had a big, huge impact on the game.
So it's funny, Steve, you talk about Tiger and Greg being both very aggressive characters. One thing I always noticed with Greg was, and maybe one of the reasons perhaps he didn't win those extra majors was he too aggressive in the moments where maybe he needed to be a bit more conservative? Because I'd always notice with players like Tiger or Jack Nicklaus back in the day, they talk of when he got that lead in the major, the game plan sort of shifted where centre of the green became a great shot. And whereas I maybe remember Greg just seemed to keep firing at flags maybe, or maybe it was pulling shots, I don't know. But did you see a difference there at all?
Yeah, look, I mean, 100%, we all know Greg's moment that the whole world saw, and the disappointment when he lost the Masters to Nick Faldo and that. He went out there on the Sunday and tried to protect his lead. He played conservative. And Tiger, he had a great theory. If I'm leading by 4, I want to lead by 5. When I'm leading by 5, I want to lead by 6. When I lead by 6, that was the difference. Greg would get to a position where he had the tournament within his grasp many times, and he would play 2. He would flip from playing aggressive, and he'd go back to playing conservative.
Wow.
Yeah, no, completely opposite to what you probably think. But whereas Tiger, no lead was ever great enough, and Tiger took great. He loved like at that US Open, like you talked about the fist pump there before, and sometimes it was meaningless. But like the biggest fist pump he did at the US Open was on the 16th hole on Sunday when he held that putt for par, because that was his big goal on Sunday. There was a big bet between the two of us whether you go around the last round with a 9-shot lead and not make a bogey. That was $1,000 bet, and he held that. That wasn't. So Tiger thrived on that. On trying to always increase his lead. He didn't play. He didn't play to protect his lead. He played to increase his lead. But when when Greg got in position, sometimes that let him down. That okay, I'm on 4 or 5 shots ahead. Let's just sit on that. No, that probably came to bite him a few times, and particularly at the Masters against Nick Faldo.
Yeah. Hey, look, in saying that, you won't remember this, but I remember it because it was a big deal. I used to caddy for David Faraday when he came to Australia, and we played with you in an Australian Masters with you and Greg, and I was just a young golfer. I was 15 years old, but it was the first time that I actually got to hear a good caddy talk to a brilliant player, and the way they mapped them around Huntingdale Golf Club, the old Huntingdale. And I felt like you had a big influence on Greg because you're always 6 foot left of this pin, or he'd get up on the first tee where all the cameras, and he'd bang driver off that first, but then he'd hit 4-iron off the second, and then he'd make him hit another 3-iron off the 5th. And these are holes where I was expecting this swashbuckling Australian superstar to really attack the course, but you did have him on a leash, and that's something as a young golfer that changed everything I did listening to that. So you had that power over him.
Very interesting you should mention that, right? Greg used to get up on that first tee at Huntingdale, and I'll never, ever forget all the years that I came from. But he had this little bit of philosophy. He liked to get up on that first tee because he'd know that 90% of the players are trying to thread it down that fairway.
That's right.
And he wanted to hit driver down there, and just a bit of an exclamation mark, I'm Greg Norman, I'm hitting driver here. Yep. And I always let him hit the driver there. And then, like you said, then I'd pull the reins back, and we'd play safety. But I
watched it. I watched it live, and it's something in my memory that changed me forever. And I've always wanted to ask you about it, but can you please expand? Because from then on, he was Mr. Conservative at Huntingdale.
One thing that a lot of players don't notice, or would never notice, and Greg had this, and Tiger had this, that every time they would always be the last player to the tee of that group. always the last player. So when they got there was always some kind of rousing ovation, and the other players had to hear it. But they never got to the team first.
I remember it. I know. I was standing there waiting for you guys to say, where the hell are they?
This is so good. I love hearing this stuff. I love hearing it.
Okay, another question here from Wolfpacker Trent, Steve. Now, Trent has said, is there a characteristic that stands out most in the golfers you've worked with that you can attribute to their success?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Firstly, you've one thing that all great players have got to be, they've got to be very good putters, and in order to be a good team reader, that's imperative to be. There's some players that can have a successful career and be mediocre putters, but to be an absolute superstar, you've got to be a fantastic putter. That's one thing. That would be common amongst them. Maybe Adam not so. He may be a bit more inconsistent, but Raymond Floyd, Greg Norman, and Tiger Woods were all fantastic putters. And what was the other thing they had? They just had work ethic. I remember time and time again working for all these three guys and we're going to be on the range at 8 o'clock tomorrow hitting balls, Steve. And it didn't matter what the weather was. It's 8 o'clock. If it required wearing gloves and a beanie, or it was waterproofs, or whatever it might be, we were practicing at 8 o'clock, and these guys never ever swayed from that. Never ever sway off their routine and their practice stuff. They were true champions, and they were born great players, but they had an incredible work ethic. Obviously, it doesn't matter what sport you are, you've got to have an incredible work ethic. So that was something that was very common between those guys.
Well, there are our three Wolfpacker questions. Nick, your job is to choose the winner. So they're the three there. Nick, if you can just select who you think was the best question for Steve, and they're going to win a personally signed copy of the book that, Mark, you are holding up right
Together
now.
We Roared.
That one right there.
We roared. All right, well, that's going to go to Peter L. I love that question about the difference between working for Greg and Tiger. So, Peter, you'll be in for a real treat reading this.
Well, Stevie, thank you so much, mate. We really appreciate your time. The book is a ripper, an absolute belter. And if you love golf, if you love the relationship, even just wanting to know more about the relationship between player and caddy, and in this case, probably the best player we've ever seen. And, many people say the greatest caddy who ever lived, Steve Williams. Stevie, thanks again.
Thanks, Ed.
That is great, Steve. Thank you so much, mate.
Really appreciate it. How's the weather up there in Oregon?
Yeah, beautiful.
Nice.
Right, sure, it's like 38 today, but it's a bit hotter than normal. But yeah, very good. I'll see you at the Open.
Righto.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Nick. Yeah, hey, just a special shout out to Evan. He did an unbelievable job writing the book. It was fantastic to work with, so I've got to give him a shout out. But thanks for having us on the show, boys.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks, Steve.
Good on you.
Good to see you again.
Well, folks, we'll see you next time.
Cheers, boys.
All right.
Talk Birdie to Me with Nick O'Hearn and Mark Allen comes live from Titleist and FootJoy headquarters. Titleist is the clear number one ball in golf. FootJoy, the number one shoe and glove in golf. Ping, they'll help you play your best. Watch my numbers, play smarter and use your data. Better, the fastest and easiest betting app in Australia. And the Golf Clearance Outlet, who beat everyone's prices. Wherever you listen or watch, we'd love you to subscribe and maybe leave a review. Talk Birdie to Me's executive producer is Dan Bradley at Kaizen Media, with sound design by Daryl Misson at loudzebra.com. And now from Titleist and FootJoy headquarters, that's been Talk Birdie to Me.